Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 19 of WTF. I'm Kim from Window Works. We're located in Livingston, New Jersey. We service the New Jersey, New York area for all window treatment and awning needs. If you are a retail client or an interior designer, we'd be happy to help you with your next project.
And I am Vita. I am the owner of Vitalia Inc. Window Treatments and Awnings, and we service the interior designers trade really in the Philadelphia area. And today we're talking about drapery panels. This is not the first time we're broaching panels, but it is the most prolific window treatment style out there. And there's never enough to say, and there is always pictures to show. So without further ado, here we go.
Okay. So, and then on Facebook too, Vita.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying. What's happening? Come on now.
Here we go. Okay.
I'm like control central here. I can't control the images. So if something is off, it's my fault. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay. So these are panels that we did for Charles Pavarini of Pavarini Designs. This is a draped headed panel on like an open weave kind of a sheer. And this sheer was the wool kind of sheer, so it was very slinky and very, as you can see with the, it felt like a slinky. And then as you can see how it like puddled on the floor and whatnot. And what we did here was we actually sewed the ring to the top of the drape to kind of give it that very loose kind of free, airy kind of feel. So with other pleats, when they're pinched at the top and sewn in and everything else, and then often with a drapery hook, and then you attach that to the ring. The ring, in this case, the rings were actually sewn to the fabric. And when you stack them back together, that's how you get that pleat effect there.
But technically there is no pleat. It's just every so often you just sewed in the ring. So it's a very casual look up at the top and at the bottom as well.
Yeah. So with that, we can decide how far apart we want to spread out the ring. So the further apart, the more casual, more slinky, the fold gets at the top, it gets a little larger. I think these might have been 6 or 7 inches apart each ring. So when you get really wide, then you get kind of like that droop kind of look in between the rings. But with this one, we went with that. And then we just installed some woven woods right underneath the drapery rod. So the wovens and the rod were almost at an even level. And it just kind of lines everything up. And it's what I like. I love bringing Romans right under our drapery rod like this, even wovens, Romans.
I really like that too. And I see that the windows are deep enough. So I guess technically you could have put them inside the windows, but then you would have had that probably big, I'm assuming, negative space. I can see the shadow variation where the window stops and the wall begins.
Yes.
So you would have had that negative wall space. And as it is, it's just one uniform, very, very sleek look.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right, so this next picture is a job that we did here at Vitalia Inc. for a wonderful, very talented designer. Her name is Nancy Gracia of Bare Root Design Studio in Newtown, Bucks County. And this project also was in Newtown in Bucks County. And I wanted to show you this picture because this is a very typical window configuration here in the Northeast, I think, but especially here in the Philadelphia area. This is, I think this was probably a custom built home, but in terms of the room positioning, it was kind of very standard. The central, like a center hall with the dining room on one side and the living room on the other side, and a pair of windows in each room. So as you look on the outside of the house, there's a window, so, and the door in the center. So, and I wanted to show how in a very typical window configuration, room configuration, a very typical Philadelphia area house, you can have 4 drapery panels side by side like that. And depending on the fabric that you choose and the hardware and the width of the panel, it does not look overdone. It doesn't look like we did too much there. And this fabric was really beautiful. I wish I could remember the vendor, but Nancy sourced it, and it just had this beautiful ombre effect at the bottom. So it's like this whole panel, you buy it in like this in a panel essentially. So this is how we had to provide the yardage, and we made sure that we preserved that entire ombre look at the bottom. And then most of that white space was at the top. And the hardware, of course, we used acrylic cube hardware from Brimar, one of our favorites lately. And of course, acrylic hardware is all the rage. And there's also different quality of acrylic hardware out there and different vendors. This particular one, like I said, is cube. It's from Brimar, and it's one of the best out there. And this particular one had, I believe, yes, gold rings and gold brackets and gold finials on the ends. Yeah.
No, so real quick with this, Vita, we had, I had a situation with a designer where her client used her own window treatment person, and they picked an ombre fabric, but the client didn't specify to the workroom how much of the ombre they wanted to see, and they only got 6 inches at the bottom. So when you're working, yeah.
Oh my God. The whole beauty was all cut off because they probably took it from the top, you know, and then ran whatever 100 inches in. Oh my gosh.
So here's the trick, because usually ombre fabrics are 118 inches long. They're usually wide width panels. So if you're speccing a ombre fabric, please be sure to let the workroom or your window treatment specialist, let them know that, you know, you want to see as much as the ombre, and you have to start from the bottom. You have to work it kind of backwards, because usually you work it from the top and the pleat, but with an ombre you have to work the whole pattern from the bottom up, which isn't like a typical practice with when you're doing drapes. But in this case, so that this way you don't lose that really pretty ombre effect, because I felt so bad that they only got like 6 inches of it. And at that point, depending on the color, it almost looks like it's like stained or dirty. Like at least this has a color, but when it's in a taupey kind of a color. So that's just one little tidbit to just keep in mind when you are working with an ombre fabric, to
just goes to show you again that no detail is too small, and there's so many details with window treatments.
It seems like it's an obvious one, but when someone doesn't know, you always want to specify, I want to see the ombre. So
yeah. And I'm like, there's so much more that I can say, but I mean, this could be like an hour show. So I'm just going to go on.
Right, so this is a job we did for Anion Design. They're based out of San Francisco. And what I liked about this, what I liked about this job is it's a little breakfast nook. And a lot of people sometimes are a little afraid, window treatments are harder than bathrooms sometimes.
Yes, Kim, you're right.
So what I liked about this was they weren't afraid to use panels in this breakfast nook. A lot of times people will shy away from it and just kind of put up a valance and whatnot. And because this was a little bay situation here, we were able to put 4 panels. They're stationary, they don't move, but we did give them enough fullness so they didn't look skimpy. And you can't see it because it is cut off at the end, but this was a French return rod. Now this project is a couple years old. I want to say it's probably maybe about 7 or 8 years old. So the French return wasn't really like that popular that many years ago. Now it's all the rage. You would see it everywhere. So it was like one of those where the designer was like, I want the pole to return back to the wall. We're like, okay. And the man looked at me and was like, you're gonna, I'm like, I'll
figure it out. Like,
I'll figure it out.
What does she want?
So, so it was this was our first French return rod situation on a bay, and then like for it to be continuous and whatnot. So it was a really fun project to work on. And it just shows you that if you have a picture of it, there's definitely ways that we can figure out how to, bring it to life.
I really like how the designer here used very vibrant and colorful fabrics. Yes. It would have been so much easier to just go with something neutral, something that blended in. Maybe somebody would have said that, oh, it just kind of, it opened up the space. We didn't want to crowd the space because it has a big table and chairs and lots of people hang out there. And in breakfast nooks, there's lots of activity. So let's not add any more activity in terms of color and pattern. But I always say I have even that much more respect and admiration for interior designers who take those extra risks. And ultimately, the result is something colorful and vibrant and bright and indicative of a risk taker, and something that the customer by him or herself probably wouldn't have chosen, but it takes that special trained eye to really envision what it would look like and go ahead and push the customer to take that risk. So kudos.
And the one thing also that I wanted to point out too is there was a tray ceiling happening here too. So the crown molding from the ceiling and from the bottom of the crown and the top of the window molding, there wasn't that much space. So we also had the challenge of finding a bracket that could fit, the back plate could fit there too, between that like smaller gap. So that's another thing with hardware that you want to keep in mind when you're working with drapery panels is we have to consider before we fall in love with the hardware, the elements. If you're dealing in tight spaces like this, sometimes you either have to make a custom bracket or we have to find a vendor that can accommodate those kind of shorter spaces between.
You know, one of my favorite sayings, quote unquote, not, is when somebody, a customer, would be like, well, can't you just throw up some brackets up there and it would just, you know, stick? I'm like, yes, lady, we can. But it's not that simple. There's a lot of research, a lot of time goes into it. And really knowing, to your point, Kim, which plate, the back plate of the bracket fit into which space. You also have to remember that certain brackets, more what would be designated as European type brackets, that get screwed into the wall, more of a wooden brackets, more American type, they get like slid on a plate, so you need additional space there. It's just there's a lot of elements and intricacies that truly goes into brackets alone, let alone hardware as a category in itself.
We could even just do an episode on brackets.
We should. I know people are like, but we could. That's what Kim and I geek out on. So, you know, we could. Maybe you and I over some wine on a Friday night. We can talk about brackets. Oh, we're such geeks. Oh, yeah.
Hey, Gina.
Hi, Gina. All right, so here I wanted to show a picture of you all, just like my previous picture where you had two side-by-side windows and we did a pair of panels on each windows and it looked really terrific and not overcrowded. I also wanted to show kind of a opposite effect where you also have two side-by-side windows, but here the decision was to not put a pair on each window. The decision here was to put each individual pair on the outside of the window. And this is what it looks like. A lot of times I do get asked by designers, well, what would it feel like and look like if we have a pair of drapes versus like just an outside panel on each? Thank you. Yes, well, here it is. This is what it looks like. I think personally, I think this look is not for everyone. I think somebody would really need to really enjoy that kind of very open space type of look. But there's certainly people who like it. And it's not sometimes not, well, actually, it's not my place a lot of times as a window treatment specialist who goes in there as a support person for an interior designer. It's not my place to say that something looks good or something looks bad. It is my place to show you visuals and to support you in terms of engineering and to support you in terms of my experience and say this is what worked and what didn't. And by showing visuals and pictures, because we have so much experience, the designer and the customer then can make their own personal judgments whether they like it or not. In this particular case, I can pull back the curtain a little bit and say that this wasn't a private residence. This was actually a model home. And anybody who's done model homes knows that everything is very, very budget conscious. So even though to the end consumer, you walk into a model and everything looks so amazing and buttoned up and you think it's just $1 million. The truth of it is everything there is very much budget and sort of even cutthroat in terms of finances. So a lot of times we would start with the window treatment schedule and it would be incredible in terms of its depth and breadth. And as we go through the process, we really have to pare it down. So one of the ways, because we have a lot of experience with model home merchandising in terms of window treatments, we work with at least 3 designers who are very hot and heavy into model homes. And so we know that if we are pushed back if the designers push back by the builder and the designers ultimately pushes back on us in terms of finding creative ways to save on the budget, this is one way to do it. So instead of 2 panels on the window, you just do one and just treat it on the outside.
Yeah. And a lot of times you can do this too, especially if you have windows that are on either side of a bed. Like if you were to put a bed here in the middle, that it would look okay, because depending on what you're doing headboard wise or whatnot, that happens a lot too with interior designers that we work with, that they get a little nervous of like, oh, is it okay if I just do one panel on the outside? And yes, the answer is yes.
Of course it's okay, right? I mean, of course, I mean, nothing will blow up.
No.
No babies will die. So
No.
yes, it's okay.
But
But that's when I pull out my pictures and I say, this is what 4 panels look like, and this is what 2 panels look like. You make the decision.
Yeah. Okay. So with this picture here, these were stationary. It's hard to tell again with the pictures, but this was actually a cartridge pleat that we did. So with a cartridge pleat, so it's a different from any, it's not like a ripple fold, it's more of a wave or pinch at the top. A cartridge pleat, we put kind of a structure in it so that it holds the pleat in place, very similar to where a goblet pleat looks almost like a wine glass. This is just like a tube that goes inside, and it is circular. So this customer was changing the home from a very traditional home to more of like a transitional type home. So these pleats are more of a stationary kind of application, because to try to kind of draw them and close them, they might spring open and close. So we just did this here on a simple, the designer ended up painting the ceiling like a really dark color. So we did just a simple thin black rod. They didn't want any rings or anything, so this was a carrier rod. And we just did stationary panels. On the larger window, we did about a width and a half. Mm-hmm. And then on the smaller window, we did 1 width for each panel. So that's another reason why I wanted to show this, that it's okay in the same room to do one set of panels that are a little wider, and then the other set is just a little bit more on the narrow side.
Well, just like it's okay in the same room to have windows of 2 different sizes, exactly. It's okay to have panels of 2 different widths and depth proportions.
Because with that, sorry, someone was trying to call me. With that, you know, you'll have to dress the window at hand, the specific window in the space. So it is okay that, like, even if you had put drapery panels in those windows in the front of the house, but on that side window, you popped a Roman shade. That's also okay too, to kind of mix and match your treatments within the same space. But so with this one, because it would have swallowed up that one single window too much, that it would have just looked like it was overdressed. It's kind of like, ladies, when you wear an accessory, and like, what did Coco Chanel say? Like, always, before you leave, take off one piece of jewelry, because it's just, you have something, it's like you don't want it to be a little too much. So that's what it is. You don't want to overdress the window and trying to keep them looking the same, because it's not going to look right.
Mm-hmm. No, that just give me an idea. We should do an episode on pleats. Have we ever done one on pleats? Mm-hmm. We have?
Yeah, I think
we did. Oh my goodness. So this is episode number 19, and I'm starting to lose it already.
I think that was episode either 1 or 2.
Great.
Yeah. But that was still in like quarantine, so it's all kind of a blur. All that from back then, like, I can't believe that.
So Kim from ASID is asking, what's the standard number of pleats per width? It's been a debate. You've had a debate with someone about it forever. Kim, it is a bit of a debate, actually. I personally like less pleats than more pleats. So on a width of material, I do 4 pleats. Ooh. I believe the industry standard is 5 pleats. Yeah. So see, Kim from WindowWorks does 5 pleats. Now I know people who do even 6 pleats sometimes.
We used to do 6.
I think right now the industry standard is 5. Here's why I do 4. I do 4 because I really love deep folds between the pleats. If you have more space between the pleat, usually with 4 pleats, you're at about 6 to 7 inches. And what happens is when you have this much space between the pleats, all of this fabric, when you squish the pleats together, it folds back towards the window. And the more fabric you have in the fold, the higher likelihood of that fold keeping its shape all the way down to the floor. So when I look at my drapes, I don't want the pleats and the folds to just be at the top and then kind of flare out towards the bottom, or to lose their shape towards the bottom and just kind of be, what'd you call it, like a slinky type?
Yeah, it's like loosey-goosey.
Like a loosey-goosey, exactly. I want the same type of fold and proportion between the pleats. at the top to maintain all throughout the fold. And the more space that I have between the pleats, the higher likelihood of that happening. Now, is it guaranteed? Absolutely not. There's a lot of things that can be contributed, that contribute to it. The type of the fabric being the biggest one. And of course, there is also
The
fullness, right, there's right, and then the length, the fullness, the type of fabric, the lining, whether it's stationary or functional. So there's quite several aspects that contribute to that. But if I can help and control at least one aspect, then that's what I'm going to do. Oftentimes I can't control the fabrics. I mean, I can give my opinion and I can give my input to the designer, but oftentimes they've already fallen in love with the fabric, so there's not a whole lot that I can do. I can control fullness by giving them the different yardage. And I can sort of control the lining as well, whether it's functional or stationary. That is dictated by the project, and so it's that distance that I can actually can control. So Kim, I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have additional information there.
Susan would love to see some pictures with the difference between 4 and 5.
Excellent, Susan. Great idea. You guys, if you have ideas for us or questions like
Let
that,
us know.
That gives us ideas for future episodes. So I'll definitely put on a schedule. You know, we can kind of combine it between the type of pleats and number of pleats, and that will sort of be in the category of panels. All right. Okay, so this was a really fun project. Kim, not you, Kim, but my friend Kim from ASID. You guys are both Kims. It's confusing. So Kim, you will recognize this is actually a restaurant. It's called Main and Vine. It's in Villanova in the Philadelphia area, on the main line of the Philadelphia area. And the designer for this project is Gasic Design Group. They are out of New Hope. They're a wonderful firm led by Richard Gasic and supported as his business manager by Lori Olszewski, and they have a wonderful team of designers. They're actually one of the firms that does a lot of model home merchandising that I work with, as well as other projects, commercial projects like this one, as well as residential projects. And so in this particular case, what they wanted to do, this was a very long space, as you can see, and they wanted to create a divider. Oftentimes restaurants hold, well, not anymore, not now, but eventually they will. they hold events, showers, baby showers, wedding showers, birthdays, things of that nature. And they want to be able to separate the space, but not separate it permanently, kind of have the ability to separate it temporarily. In come the window treatments, in comes this particular panel. This was actually a very challenging project. Believe it or not, this is from the category where can't you just throw up some brackets? It looks very simple, but it was very complicated. I'm not going to go into all the complexities of it because I'm going to stick with the whole theme of this episode of just showing you the different panels. And so this is the panel pulled back, and this is the panel when it's completely closed off. So you can see how there's a front space, and then of course there's the back space there. So ripple fold top, you can see there's a track that's mounted at the ceiling. So this ripple fold gives it a very clean, more streamlined, more contemporary look. And we punched it out on the side with a bit of banding. So you can see that most of the panel is done in like this wheat type of color. And then there's a grayish type band on the right.
So let me ask you a quick question. So this is the private room side of the drape? Is that what we're looking at?
No, this is actually the
restaurant.
This is the restaurant. Well, I mean, both of the restaurant side, right? But this is more of the front door side. So over to the right of the chairs is where the hostess station is, and that's where people would come through. So you can they could still sit people at these two tables, and there's some more tables up on the front. But then in the back behind that curtain, they have this long space where they can have private parties.
So on the back, did the Gasic team spec it so that you had the same fabric on the back, so it wasn't like lined in the back, and then you brought everything down? Yeah,
that's exactly it. Thanks, Kim. So this is what would in the industry what we would refer to as self-line drapery panel. So yes, this was. So I'll just go into the challenges of it a little bit. This was. Oh gosh, I want to say about 140 inches in length. And widthwise, I think this was about 200 inches. This was very heavy linen fabric.
Oh.
Double-sided. This was so heavy, and
Mhm.
anybody who's done ripple fold knows
Does he
that
get
the
snaps?
room, you got to snap it in, yes, and then you don't feel your fingers.
Mhm.
And but most importantly is what happens is there's, unlike with pleats where you can control the length even a little bit by a quarter of an inch, maybe even half an inch, with ripple folds you can, where it snaps in, you can move it up or down. And
Mhm.
what happens is you release the drape, and with linen, of course, it grows, it extends down, and we were so worried that it would just like puddle all over the floor. I mean,
Mhm.
this is really, you put it up, you snap it in, you release it, and you're like, oh my God, can you please just not grow so much?
Yeah.
And you have to stand there for hours because it doesn't happen right away. I mean, it can
No.
happen over time. And of course, we talked about linen before with humidity and temperature change and this, that, and the other thing. There's lots of
Mhm.
things that can happen. But thankfully that this did not happen here. But this was one of those very heavy materials, double line or double faced, and it's just so many things could have gone wrong. But whew, all
Yeah.
good there.
Okay. So with this picture here, what I wanted to show was the center window is an arch window. So with that, these are stationary panels. We did this for Jody McBride Interiors. And I wanted to show that with the slanted roof, that you're still able to do panels at two different heights here. And so the rod is going above the arch because we had just enough space to bring the rod above the arch. And then we just buried the side windows, those rods going just slightly above where as high as the ceiling line would allow us, because again, with the pitch ceiling, you kind of have to play with that. We wanted to maximize so there wasn't so much fabric in front of the window. So I think we were only able to bring it out like 3 or 4 inches before the rod would really hit that angle. And then we just had the rod die right into that panel there, the center panels. So it's kind of like the smaller windows almost have a pair, but the pair keeps going up a little higher. So it's okay to play with different heights within a window like this. So that's one of the things that I wanted to show. Because a lot of times it's like, well, what do? We can't just do the rod going across because of the roof line. And so this is a way to treat a window like this because it was a backdrop of a living room right when you walked in. So that was like the focal point.
Very nice. Nicely done. And of course, you didn't want to run the rod across the arch window either because it would just like artificially cut it in half and it would just look horrible.
It would just make the room look, yeah, having the different heights definitely was beneficial there. Thank you. Thank you, Susan.
Before I go into this project, I need to give a little shout out to my kids. They're on Facebook.
Yes.
Hi, Anton. Hi, Anna. They're always there with my husband supporting me. This is their lunch hour. They're in virtual school, so the lunch hour is between 12 and 1. I try to run home for lunch to have a check-in with them during the week, but Fridays are right here in the office, hanging out with my friend Kim and talking about window treatments. But guys, I miss you, and be good. Learn something good in school.
And about window treatments.
And window treatments, that's right. All right. So this project, this is a very recent project for us, for one of the new for us designers. This is Michelle Plachter Interiors, who's a wonderful and very prominent and extremely talented designer in Philadelphia. This particular project was done also in Philadelphia in a University City area. And you can see the view from the windows there. And these are functional drapery panels. You can barely see the rod because this was a traversing rod, meaning functional. So the drapes can open and close. And the rods were from the Select line by United Supply. This is metal. This is traversing rods, like I said, with the flat metal fascia. So that's where you can kind of barely see. So we wanted to do something slightly decorative, not just like, we didn't just want to put a track there, which would have looked very commercial and hospital-like. And so we wanted a little bit of decoration there, but something that kind of dove into the ceiling. You could barely see it. So that's that. Now, the challenge there, of course, was anytime you have any kind of angle, you have to take deductions, right? You can't just take the width of one side and the width of the other side and hope that it fits. No, you have to decide, do you want the two rods to miter? Do you want them to have a space, or do you want it to button pass, meaning that one goes to the wall and the other one goes to the rod? So either way, you have to take some kind of deduction there. So there's a little bit of a thought process that's involved there. And these are, like I said, functional draperies. Right now, they're pulled back. Double top tack pleat. This is one of our favorite pleats nowadays. And beautifully adorned with leading edge trim. This was probably like a 3-inch trim on the leading edge. And everybody was happy in the end.
Very nice. Now, were these baton draw or cord draw?
Cord draw.
Cord draw.
Yeah, actually, you can do them either way. These particular ones were a cord. Oftentimes, I think I want to say, what do I prefer? Do I prefer a rod or a baton if I were to make a recommendation? You know, I don't know if I can. I think this is a personal decision, and also depending on the situation, on the height of the window. But I can tell you this. We buy heavy duty acrylic batons, and those are pretty much exclusively the ones that we use, because they're nice and sturdy. They're not one of those like cheap fiberglass batons. They kind of like bend if you start moving the drape. These are nice, heavy duty, thick. So when you start moving the drape, it just doesn't bend on you. So that's one recommendation that I can give. As far as whether cord or baton, it just depends on what is the personal preference, how often are they used, what's the accessibility to the drapes, can you get to the baton easily, or can you get to the cord easily? Does the customer like grabbing something and just going whew, you know, one of those motions, or does she prefer, or he, to do one of those motions, which is the cord? So that's kind of like the mechanics of the use of the window treatment that you have to talk through with your customer for them to understand what to expect when they start using it, and hence becomes the decision.
Right, absolutely.
All right,
everyone. Well, that is our episode. So thank you so much for watching. Before we go, we do have some free goodies that we wanted to share with you. On the WindowWorks website, we have Architectural Digest is not coming. 10 things you need to know about window treatments. Luann wrote this ebook a couple years ago. So if you are new to the window treatment industry and what you need to learn, hop on over to WindowWorks and download this free ebook.
Awesome. And from Vitalia Inc. side, we also have a little free goodie for you. On our website, you can download a free lookbook that we called 37 and a half window treatment ideas that you can use immediately, steal, swipe, and make your own in your next design project. So it is lots of ideas curated by yours truly. I give you lots of eye candy and point out the different things that you should pay special attention to. So free on my website, vitaliainc.com. Make sure to grab yours.
And then to keep up with all things Luann and WTF, the audio version where this originated from, be sure to head on over to luannigara.com. If you click the podcast tab, and in the search tool, once you get there, if you type in WTF, all the episodes that Vita and Luann have recorded are right there for you to listen to. And then also make sure that you follow Luann on her Instagram page at Luann Igara. There's a lot of exciting things that are going to be happening in the next couple weeks and months. So just be sure to head on over and follow in.
Lots of exciting things. Yes. I just as far as WTF, the podcast version, last Friday, Luann dropped our latest episode called the Tips for Selling Window Treatments, which I thought was particularly good one. We're getting some really good response to it, just from the standpoint of it's good to know about window treatments and the pleats and the fullnesses and the different styles and this and the other thing. But in this in this episode, we're taking it in a just a different aspect of it,
Right.
where we get into the nitty-gritty of how to sell them, how to present them, how to communicate value of your firm and of what you're selling. What are some of the aspects, what are some of the mindset things that you need to make sure to work on? So this is a very, very good episode, if I may say so myself.
All right, and to keep up with all things WindowWorks, you can follow us on Instagram at WindowWorks, and the same thing on Facebook. If you are in the New Jersey, New York area and you need assistance with window treatments and awnings, please give us a shout. We would be happy to help you.
And before I leave you with my contact information, I just want to point out that both Kim and I had birthdays within the last week or so. Kim's was on the 5th, mine 5th?
Yes.
5th, that's right. I'm on the 9th. We're both Virgos, so you have two Virgos happening here, which means highly organized, highly detailed, anal retentive. I said that about myself, not about you, Kim.
I am
too. OCD and proud of it.
And a little bit of control freak.
Just a little bit, I don't know. But I'm thinking, you know, window treatments that require so much of that, you know, control, detail, accuracy, organization, and two Virgos, and here we are doing WT. I mean, this is like marriage made in heaven. I don't know who thought of that. All right, so I'm going to leave you guys with just my own contact information. I would love to be friends on Facebook and follow each other on Instagram. I'm there all the time, hanging out and doing Reels. Reels is like my new thing. I'm obsessed with Reels, so check out mine. I have a few up, and of course stories, and I post some really great pictures. We also feature and highlight designers all over the country, as well as the local designer stores here, which we highly admire and respect. So Vitalia_Inc. is my handle on Instagram, and you can always reach out to me direct. My phone number, my email, website, all is here. So if you are a designer in the Philadelphia area who needs support, who wants to feel supported in terms of window treatments, who wants to have that partner who will not let her down, who will take care of all the minutiae and the intricacies and all the details of window treatments, who just wants to really throw ideas around and bounce ideas off of each other, and who wants to have the VIP treatment. Vitalia Inc. is the company for you here in the Philadelphia area, and of course WindowWorks is your partner in the New York metro area.
All right, everyone. Well, that is our episode. Be sure to join us every Friday, because if it's Friday,
it's WTF Live.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great weekend.
Alrighty.
Alrighty. Okay. Why?